Okay, 8.3 should be something you've seen before. It's basic statistical information. It's mean, median, and mode. Right? That's it. 8.3 is mean, median, and mode. Right? Mean, median, and mode for one variable, either given as a single variable set or frequency table or probabilities. All right, now the probability part might be new to you. It's the expected mean, and we'll get to that towards the end of 8.3. Alright, so mean, median, mode, and the last thing is expected value. It's the expected amount based on probabilities. Alright, so there is a difference between population and sample. Alright, population would be if I could take and pull everybody in a particular group that I'm looking at. So if I pulled all freshmen, alright, a sample space, or a sample, not a sample space, but a sample refers to, instead of pulling everybody, we take a sample of the population. So again, if we were looking at the entire United States, if we tried to pull everybody, it'd be nearly impossible, right? And there's over 300 million people in the United States. And so what they do is they pull, right? They pull people, and so they find whatever demographic they're looking at, ages 18 to 24, they randomly select a demographic group, and then they pull them. Right? And they pull a small group. Right? Now, the bigger the group, the better the pull is, but again, it's usually in the hundreds of thousands and not in the millions. Right? So a sample, and there's error involved because you can't sample everybody. There's always error involved. And so we do have different notation if it's a population and a sample, because it's important to distinguish whether I'm pulling everybody, which is more accurate, than pulling a sample group from everybody, just a small group of representation of a population. Alright, so a simple example would be, suppose I was interested in studying the GPA of freshmen at Illinois State University. The population would be if I took every single freshman, every single one, didn't miss a single person, and studied their GPAs. Ran statistics on all the GPAs of freshmen. Right? All, however many thousand of you there are. The sample, on the other hand, well, suppose I don't have time to ask or look at the data set for all of them. Alright? So what I do instead is I take a small group. Right? Instead of looking at the few thousand of freshmen there are, I think there's 2,000 or 3,000 freshmen, we took a group of 100. Right? We pull 100 freshmen and base our results off that sample, which is a smaller group of our population. Alright, so when we're talking sample mean, sample population, sample anything, alright, that's what we're talking about. It's a small group. Population means every single person. We didn't leave anybody out. Every single person was polled in our particular demographic. Alright, so the different symbols that we use, usually if it's a sample, we use English letters, and if it's a population, we use Greek letters. That's just the rule of thumb for statistics. Alright, so sample mean would be the average value of the sample taken from the population, just the small group. And so the sample mean, the symbol is X with a bar above it. Alright, it's the sum of all the values in the sample divided by how big the sample is. So you add up all the values in your sample and divide by however many is in your sample. The population mean is the average of every single value in the population without missing anybody. Again, we use Greek letters. The Greek letter for the population mean is this mu symbol. It's kind of like the letter U, but it's got two ends to it. It's got a really long beginning and a short little end, and it's called the mu symbol. And it stands for the population mean. This is the population mean. This is the sample. So again, Greek letters for population, American letters, or English letters for the sample mean. You find them the same way though. The difference is the sample is just the sample size is what you divide by. Population, you add up every single value in the population and divide by the population size. So the math is the same, population is just going to have more numbers. So when we compute the mean for population or sample, we use different symbols to recognize which case it was, but it's done the same way. You add up all of the values in your data set. Alright, so if I'm looking at GPAs, I'd add up every single GPA in my 100 group if it was my sample. Or if I'm looking at the entire population, I would add up every single GPA in the entire freshman class. And then I'd divide by how many there were. So if it's the sample, I would divide by 100, because there are already 100 GPAs I've added together. Or if it's the population, I divide by however big of the freshman class is. Alright, so again, it's the sample's average or the population's average is what we mean by average. I mean is the average. So if I was doing GPA, it would be the average GPA for my sample, which would represent my population, or it'd be, if I found the population, it would be the average GPA for the entire population. Right. N represents the number in the sample space or the population. X is every single number that you add up. Alright, median. Median is also found the same way if it's a sample or population. And usually we just use words. We don't really use symbols for median. We say sample median or population median. Right, we just use the word. You find the median. Median is what is in the middle, meaning there should be the same number of values above that number as there are below that number. Alright, and so if it's odd, it's pretty easy. If it's an odd set, so if I have 5, right, 5 GPAs, there's one GPA in the middle because that one GPA would have 2 GPAs above it and 2 GPAs below it. Right? So if it's odd. If it's even, then I have to take the two middle values and average them. So if I had 6 GPAs, well, there's 2 in the middle that I would average together because those 2 in the middle would have 2 above it and 2 below it. Or once I find the average in the middle, I'd have 3 scores above it, 3 scores below it. All right, and so again, if it's, and we'll do an example of each case. So if it's odd, it's easy. There's one middle score. If it's even, there are 2 middle scores, and I find their average. Mode is just, again, it's found the same. We usually just use words. We say sample mode or population mode. There's no symbols for them. We just use language, words. Mode is basically the number that appears the most often. Right? What number appears the most often? And so what you can have one mode. If there's one number that shows up the one mode, so you can have one mode. All right, if one number shows up the most, you can have multiple modes. And we'll do an example with multiple, meaning in a set, 2 numbers show up the most, all right, the exact same. So if a set where certain numbers show up 5 times, another number shows up 5 times, and that's the most, I've got 2 modes. I can have 3 modes. Or I can have no mode. A no mode case is basically when all the numbers show up the same number of times. Usually this means they're all different. There's no repeating numbers. Every single number in my set is different. Nobody has more values than another guy. And so in that case, there's no mode. Right? Nobody shows up more than anybody else. So you can have one mode, one value shows up the most. Multiple modes if you have more than one value that shows up the most, and they're equal. Right? They show up the equal amount. Or none. And usually the none case means every single value is different. Alright, so we'll get to example. The first example of Janet here. Alright, Janet has taken 9 quizzes in her economics class. Each quiz is scored out of 10 possible points. Her quizzes are the following. So there's her 9. And so it's all her quiz scores. So this would be population, right? All of her quiz scores. So this would be population. It's all quiz scores. Right? Population. And so we want to find her average, her mean quiz score. Well, population, we want to find the mean, which is the average. And so we add up all of our quiz scores and divide by 9, right? So we would take, 7 plus 9 plus 7 plus 7 plus 10 plus 6 plus 8 plus 9. And the biggest thing is make sure you don't miss anybody. Divide by 9. Alright, so we add up all the scores. That adds up to 72. Divide by 9, right? There are 9 scores. 9 values I added together. And so 72 divided by is 8. So 8 is her average. Again, mean is average. So her scores averaged out to 8. The median quiz score. Alright, in order to find the median, I have to find the value in the middle. In order to find the value in the middle, I have to order them. Right, I have to put them in order of either low to high or high to low. You can go either way. I typically go low to high, but if you want to go high to low, that's fine. But I'll usually start with the low score. So 6 is my low score. Then I've got 3 7s. So 7, 7, and 7. Got an 8. 3 9s. And a 10. And then I just do a quick count. Make sure I've got 9 scores there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I do. Okay, so her median is the score in the middle. And this is the odd case, right? There are 9 of them. So there's one number in the middle. That one number in the middle is 8. Right? 8 is in the middle because there are 9 scores above 8, and sorry, not 9 scores. There are 4 scores above 8, and there are 4 scores below it. So it means it's in the middle. There are the same number of scores above and below the 8, right? 4, right? So there are the same number of scores above 8 as below 8. Right? In this case, 4. 4 scores above 8 and 4 scores below 8. So 8 is in the middle. And so her median is 8. And it's just a coincidence that it's the same as the average. Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. In this case, it happens to be, but that again, like I said, that's just a coincidence. That's not always going to happen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Right, the last thing is the mode, and actually the mode is easier to find after you've done the median because you've lined things up in order. And in this case, I've got 2 modes. Right? Her most popular quiz scores were 7 and 9. She scored 3 quizzes at 7 and 3 quizzes at 9, and those were the most, and they're the equal. And so this case is an example of 2 modes. She had a mode of 7 and a mode of 9. Now, had one of those been, 4 scores of one of them, then that would have been 1 mode case. If every one of her scores would have been different, that would have been the no mode case. Alright, so this happens to be the multiple mode case. Alright, so we're going to do the same one, but suppose Janet gets to drop her lowest quiz score. Alright, so I want to find the mean, median, and mode of her 8 highest quiz scores. So now this is a sample. As soon as I throw away a quiz score, it's no longer all of her quiz scores, it's a sample. It's her 8 highest, so basically this 6 gets thrown away. And so it's just the 3 7s, the 8, the 3 9s, and the 10. Right. I will show you how to do this with the calculator, although you can't find mode on the calculator. You can only find mean and median on the calculator. But I'm going to do it by hand first. All right, so now it's a sample mean, right, or average 8 highest scores. And so the easiest way to do this is there's only 8, so I divide by 8, right, and change by 9. And then remember, when I added them up before, it added up to 72. Well, I just took away the 6. So just take 72 and subtract away 6. Or you can re-add them back up if you want to. So those scores, again, if you re-add them back up, is 66. But we're only dividing by 8 this time, right? Only have 8 scores, not 9. And when you take 66 divided by 8, her average is a little higher than before. It should be. If we're dropping the lowest, right, that's her new average. Her average is now an 8.25, which is a little bigger than her previous average. All right, now the median. And so now if I look at these, and again I got a little messy when I wrote them out. I'm going to write them out again. 9, 9, 9, 10. Okay, so this is there's even case, right? So that means there's 2 numbers in the middle. The 2 numbers in the middle are 8 and 9. There are 3 scores below the 8 and the 9, and there are 3 scores above in the 8 and the 9. And again, I have to find the middlemost value. And so what you do is, you average the 2 middle scores. I've got 2 middle scores. I've got an 8 and a 9, and I've got to average them. So it means I add up the 2 middle scores, the 8 and the 9, and divide them out by 2, which is 8.5. And it should make sense that it's 8.5, right? 8.5 is right in the middle of 8 and 9. It's halfway point between 8.5. And so that's my median, which means there's the same number of scores above and below. In this case, there's 4 scores above and 4 scores below the 8.5. Right, so there's the same score. Now remember, scores above 8.5 as there are below 8.5. Alright, that's her median. And then the mode. Mode didn't change. She's got modes, 7 and 9. And you can't find this on the calculator. You can find these on the calculator. So how you do that on the graphing calculator? Alright, so we're going to go to the graphing calculator. Alright, so this is my TI-84. And so where to do statistics should make sense that it's under the stat key. So you hit stat key. It's the one right below the delete key. It's the STAT, so hit stat. Then I'm going to edit, so pick one, edit. I've got list in there. I've got to clear them out, so I've got to go up, highlight the list 2, and I'm going to highlight list 1, and I'm going to hit clear. So once it's moved up and highlighted, hit clear, enter. It'll clear out list 2, Go over, do the same thing to list 1, highlight list 1, hit clear, enter, and I've got all my lists cleared out. Alright, then in list 1, alright, so on the calculator, you're going to go to Stat, Edit, and in list 1 are going to be your X values, your scores. Alright, so I'm going to put these scores, those are my X values, the 7, 7, 8, 9, 9, 9, 10. Alright, so make sure I'm just careful. 7, enter, there's 3 of those. There's an 8, 3 9s, and a 10. Alright, and again, should be good. Alright, quit to leave that. Go back to Stat. Alright, so you're going to quit, go back to Stat, and then we're going to go to Calculate. And we're going to pick one variable statistics. Alright, so over to Calculate, C-A-L-C, and then one variable, and it's always one variable in this class. We don't do more than one variable, so only ever pick one variable. Now, this is where your calculator might be different than mine. If your calculator is an older calculator like an 83 or an older 84, yours will look different. Yours will just have on the top of your screen one variable statistics, and you can go ahead and hit enter. Mine asked me some questions, so it asked me list, and it list should be my L1, that's by default. There's no frequency. We'll get to frequency list in a little bit, so that should be cleared. If there's an L2 there, hit clear that out. And then once you've got that, so it said say list should be L1, frequency list should be nothing. Are ready to calculate. Now again, if yours is an older one, it'll just have one variable statistics across the top, and you just hit enter and you're good to go. And then it should pop up this information. Alright, so the very first thing is your mean. 8.25, which is what I found by hand. And then see this little arrow at the bottom of the page? It means there's more. That's how I'm going to find my median. You scroll down, and MED is your median, and there's my median 8.5. So there's check my answers. Alright, and so it checked those answers. Now it doesn't give mode, but mode is the one that occurs the most often. Alright, problem number 3. Alright, suppose I've collected the following prices of gold. So gold, this is gold per ounce, right? Gold is worth a lot of money. An ounce is not very big. Alright, if you have a gold coin, it's worth probably a couple $1,000s, alright? So, I mean, if it's a fairly significant gold coin. Find the mean, median, mode, and then explain what the information is telling you. Because in the WebAssign, it will ask you to explain that as what is the average telling you, what is the median telling you, what is the mode telling you. Alright, so again, it's up to you if you want to solve this with the calculator, or you can solve it by hand. Alright, so it's a sample, right? It's not all gold prices over all time. So I'm going to add up my scores and divide by 7. And so when we add up our scores, divide by 7. Which I thought I had in here. Apparently I don't. Alright, so it's 13,474. Alright, 13,474 divided by 7 comes out to be about $1,924.86 and change. Alright, so the average, the gold sells on average over that 7-day period. And so again, what that means, over the 7-day sample, the price of gold has an average value of $1,924.86. Again, it's an average. Some days it's higher than that, some days it's lower than that. That's its average. Alright, so on average, that's how much gold was worth over that per ounce over that 7-day period. Alright, now the median. Right, it's the odd case, so it's not too bad. I've just got to put them in order. So my lowest value, 911, 1911. Next lowest value, 917. 1924. 1927. 1930. 1931. And then 1934. Alright, so there should be one value in the middle. And there it is. This is the value in the middle. There's 3 scores above it and 3 scores below it. And so the median is 1,927, which again means that value had as many values above it as below it. Meaning there is many scores above that are value amounts of worth of gold above 1927, or 3, as there were below. There were 3, right? It had the same above and the same below. It's smack dab in the middle. Alright, the mode. Well, if you'll notice, they're all different, right? Not a single value was repeated, and so the mode, there is none. The answer is no mode. No value showed up more than any other value. Alright, so there is no mode. Alright, none for that answer. Alright, so this is an example of again, median, and mode should be something you've talked about before. I'm going to stop the video there, and then we'll pick up samples with frequency tables, right? You do have to do frequency tables a little differently. We'll be doing them on the calculator, and so I'll pick up my next value with frequency tables. Alright, we'll stop there.